So good afternoon. Welcome to the webinar. For those of you who don't know, my name is Scott Logan with the Office of VMS. I'm the Education and Licensing Coordinator for the office. And we've been getting a lot of questions for over the last couple of weeks since the new Chapter 18 has gone into effect of what do I have to do? What's required for this year? So I wanted to put together a few webinars to give you guys some insight, updates, and guidance as to where things are, where we're going, and how your life has changed a little bit and what is required for you for renewal of your license in the future. So if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat box. You can unmute yourself and ask me as well. Either way, we'll get you taken care of. Hopefully most of your answers or questions will be answered as we move through, but if you have others, definitely let me know. I'd rather answer a bunch of questions, make sure we're all on the same page, then come October, November, December, have some questions and other issues that we have to deal with. So kind of jump right into it. For those of you that have been around coming to trauma conference, being involved in other things around the state, for the last 3 years, we've been promising you that we're going to get the renewal requirements updated. We're going to, modernize those a little bit more, bring them into more of a concurrence with other things that are going on around the nation. So why are we here today? I want to describe the new rules and updates as they relate to the renewal of your license, starting in those who expire in 2020 and beyond. So the question is, what's new, what's changed? Pretty much everything. We went through the old Chapter 8, looked at it, tried to see what was in there, what was being required, looked at why it was required, why we were asking for it, and realized there was it was time and updates needed to be made. Like I said, we've been working on this for about 3 years. Every time we've gotten into it, something else has changed, pushed it back, and we've kind of been, struggling to get it done. But, can proudly and finally say that, yes, we finally got this done. We finally got you set up. So some of the things you'll see, and these are the things we'll talk about, reduced number of topics. So these are the topical areas. For EMTs, we had trauma, we had medical, we had preparatory, we had operations, we had, unstructured. So it was a large number. Then we got into our advanced levels, especially our intermediates and paramedics. Not only did we have medical, but then we had defibrillation EKG, we had cardioversion, we had, authorized medications. So we kept adding additional topics onto that, and sometimes it made it really difficult to figure out where a training would fit in. Or if you put one in towards the beginning of your cycle, then you got towards your end, and you're like, well, crap, I got extras in medical, but I don't have enough in authorized meds. But we talked about albuterol when we talked about asthma, but it was hard to go back in, move things, change things. So we wanted to figure out how could we, as an office, how could we as a regulatory body make your life easier? So reduce the number of topics. And with that, in reducing that number, we rearranged some of the hour requirements and made some reductions in that as well. And then the skills. Especially for those of you that teach CPR, that for a lay rescuer, we give them a CPR class that includes AED, and it's good for 2 years, and then they come back in 2 years and they renew it. But we don't make them every 6 months prove that they still know how to work an AED. But we would take our professional EMS providers that we have that are licensed and capable, and we would say that, hey, every 6 months you got to show me how to use an AED, whether you're an EMR, an EMT, an AEMT, intermediate, or medic. We made you show us that. some of those old holdovers. The last time these rules were updated was over 12 years ago. So, there's some things that we needed to kind of bring up to date. And then truthfully, if you really look at it, skills and competency is a local responsibility, not a licensing responsibility. On the licensing side, we should be just making sure that you have met the minimum requirements as required by the state to maintain your license. Not that you're good at any of it, but just that you have met those minimum requirements. We want everybody to be good. We want everybody to have a great skill set, but that's up to your local agency, your local medical director, to decide what good is, to what competent is. One of the other big changes that we have added is acceptance of National Registry certification as a equal to completing Wyoming required CE hours. Something we've never done, something we've talked about, again, something we've promised, and now we are finally able to say that yes, we are able to do that. So if you have a national registry and you're not in your initial cycle, when it comes to your renewal for your Wyoming, you can use that. We'll talk a little bit more. And then increase in the allowable of distributive continuing medical education. So that's our non-instructor contact education, whether it's online or offline. So for those of you that are using somebody like Medic CE, who lets you go in at any time, take a class that they have in their library, gives you a certificate at the end after you take a quiz or something, that's distributive. If you get a GEMS article or EMS1, and you go in and you review that article and you take the quiz at the end and have somebody grade it for you, that's non-instructor contact. So any of those courses where it's non-instructor contact, we have increased the allowable on those from where it used to be. In the past, the limitation was at 10 hours per renewal cycle, but that was only in policy, not in rule. And so we had some issues there. But now it's actually in rule, we have it written down, and we have what the expectations and requirements are. So, new topical areas, especially those of you that from the service level enter education into the system. You've always had a struggle because of the way the system was set up, because of the way that things worked. So if you were teaching your organization and you had EMTs, AEMTs, intermediates, and you taught a cardiology course and you talked about how we use the monitor, how we shock somebody and go through the process, you couldn't apply that easily to folks of different levels without creating multiple classes, just because of that medical versus authorized meds versus AE or cardioversion, EKG, defibrillation, those type of sections. So now we've streamlined it. These are the 5 topical areas that you'll be required to cover: airway management, pediatrics, trauma, medical, and elective. They'll be the same 5 topics that no matter what your level is from EMR through paramedic, that you will have to cover. So you teach a class, you have multiple levels in, you don't have to worry about where to break that down. If we're talking about, we do a case review, we're working with a medical patient, it's medical. We talk about trauma, we extricate somebody out of a car, goes into trauma. Even though your paramedics do their chest decompression, we no longer have to break that out. So again, streamlining the requirements for everybody to make it work. Then with that, how we changed and made the different levels work is by the number of hours assigned. So you'll see an EMR has this, again, the same topical areas required as an EMT, AEMT, IEMT, medic, but they'll have different hours assigned to the categories. EMR owes us 20 total hours for the 2-year cycle, and is broken down as shown there. So 2 hours for airway, 2 hours for pediatric, 5 for trauma and medical, and then 6 elective hours. Then you go into EMT, you'll see an increase in the hours. So it's 6 hours required for airway and pediatrics, 10 hours for trauma and medical and elective, for a total of 42. And we said the hours change in the old system, and under the old Chapter 8 rules, an individual had to do 47 hours as an EMT, 22 hours as a as a EMR, plus your 8 skills as an EMT. For an AEMT, you had 55 hours and 64 required skills. So we've only shaved 1 hour off of that. But again, the skills component has dropped off. And same thing across the board. An intermediate used to be required to have 67 hours and a paramedic 79 hours. So again, just making things more streamlined, more equal, and making things so that those individuals that are entering training and recording training and creating and delivering classes, they have a clearer target to aim at, a clearer goal to achieve, to make your lives easier. So Chapter 18, at the beginning of the chat box, you can go up, I uploaded a link to Chapter 18 and also to a little spreadsheet that just kind of explains that. If you can't see that or didn't get it, let me know. I'll repost that at the end. But it's there. Chapter 18 is written in rule, so it's written kind of that legalese type thing. So it takes a little bit of effort to go in and look at it, but it's there and it's available. The spreadsheet is more like what you just saw here. So Section 2 in this case is just the second section in Chapter 18, and it says a licensee is not eligible for renewal under Chapter 16 after Chapter 16 unless they have a current CPR card for all levels, and that is an IEMT or medic current and valid ACLS card from the national organization approved by the division for both of these. So on our website, you will see the approved or evaluated CPR and ACLS classes. You will also see the renewal requirements and along with a bunch of other things. But these are now available on the website. The Chapter 18 is available as well. And you can go out there and look at it. Now, if you look under sub-bullet III here, so again, the first part, you have to have your CPR card. If you're an intermediate or a medic, you have to have your ACLS. And now to renew, you will have 2 options. Completed the required CME hours, work specific to the licensee's level of licensure, as described in this chapter, or is currently certified by the National Registry of Emergency Medical Technicians at the licensee's level of licensure. So where this comes into a little bit of a hiccup is I am an intermediate in Wyoming, and I have National Registry AEMT certification. What I can't do is say, hey, here's my AEMT, and then here's my extra hours for I. For intermediates, you will have to document your hours in the ALS system and make that, make that documentation there available when you do your renewal application. If you're an AEMT, a paramedic, an EMT, an EMR, and you have National Registry, you'll upload a copy of your current National Registry card. We'll see that. The system will then actually go out and check the National Registry database and confirm that you're still active and not expired, and then we'll be able to get you renewed. So if you have National Registry, because this has been a question for years, I have to document this twice. Now you only have to document it once. You document it into the National Registry system, you keep your National Registry current, and then when you go to renew your Wyoming, you show me your current National Registry. So again, especially for our folks like our flight services, our out-of-state folks that do wildland fire, things along that line, you know, works through this and shows us what we need to do. Next one is, you know, part of your renewal application requirements is proof of eligibility. So with that, you either show, if you're using hours like we've done in the past, you got to show rosters, you got to show certificates, you got to show proof that you actually went to the courses of study, the classes that you documented that you went to. We will still be auditing individuals, you know, 10% of the folks every year. So that part's still going to happen. That's not going to change. For those that renew using National Registry, what we will then do is each year when we have our renewals, the system pulls a random 10%. We don't have anything to do with that. It's just out of the OWL system. We'll just say to National Registry, hey, these are the people from our state that need to be audited. So that means if you go and take a class, if you instruct a class, whichever the case is, there has to be documentation that you were there. So if you're teaching a class, as long as there's a roster that shows that you were the instructor, you're fine. If you were part of the class, take that class. And yes, and I understand now, especially right now where we're in this land of everything's remote delivery, if you use Zoom or another information sharing platform, WebEx, whatever the case is, one of the things I'm going to recommend is make sure you know how to go pull your participant roster out of that system. And one of the other things I would suggest is when you are having your individuals sign in, make sure that their names are listed. An example is on the call today, we have somebody that's calling from their phone and they just have a phone number in there. So what I can do is, you know, I could ask, hey, who has this phone number? I can then go into the meeting and change the name that shows on, in this case, Zoom, because that's what we use. I can change that phone number to a name, and then it registers that name in the system. And then, you know, when you as the instructor pull that roster from your information sharing system, we can use that. So again, we understand there's going to be some, few things different, as we're doing a lot of remote delivery, doing a lot of, smaller classes. Just as long as there's a way to prove that people were in a class, we're good with that. Oops. So then when we talk about what is the definition of CME, so continuing medical education. So different forms, different ways we can deliver it. Live in person, so whether that is live in person in a classroom, live in person over a Zoom meeting, or WebEx, or again, some other webinar type platform, we don't care about how it's delivered, just that it's live. And with live, we mean there has to be an instructor present whom you can ask questions of as you progress through the course. Distributive continuing medical education, so we call it DCME, again, goes back to those Medic CE, Boundtree University, those places that would deliver a class without an instructor. Another example would be like Centura South EMS Group. They do live classes, but then they record those classes, then they archive them and put them on their website. When you go back and watch at the end, after they have archived that, that instructor is no longer present, no longer there for you to have live interaction with. So that class would change from being a live class when it's going on right now to being a distributive class once it's archived, saved, and put into the system. So this is one that intrigues me sometimes. The amount of questions I get on this is, how many hours is a class worth? So my response back is, how long did you meet? They're like, well, an hour. I go, then it's worth an hour. If you met for 15 minutes, it's worth 15 minutes. Hour and a half, the same. So it's hour for hour, minute for minute that you're present. Rounded to the nearest 15 minutes is fine. If you're there for an hour and 10 minutes, make it an hour and 15. I'm good with that. It doesn't have to be exact to the second. A lot of places, whether you're clocking in and out of work, you're doing classes, they use the 7-8 rule. If it's within 7 minutes after the top of the hour, it goes back to the top of the hour. If it's past the 8-minute mark, it goes to the next 15-minute increment. Just be honest, be smart. If it doesn't feel like the right thing, then it's probably not the right thing. If it feels right, and it looks right, we're good. Some of the other things that we'll talk about is distance education. It has been accredited through our office or has been accredited through CAPACE, so the Commission on Accreditation for Pre-Hospital Continuing Education. So either we've said it's good, or if it's not part of something that we do, that the CAPACE board has gone through, evaluated. Some of the things they look at when they do the evaluations is if they go in, they're going to take the class, and if it's an hour class, they're going to make sure that it lasts pretty close to an hour. It's not like a YouTube video where you can go in and fast forward through it and go right to the end. So they verify, they vet the education that's out there. It's a fairly extensive process that businesses and training and education groups have to go through to get accredited by these folks. And what they do is they'll go out and they audit the classes from time to time. I took a course a number of years ago right after I came to the office because on their website they said it was approved by Wyoming. It was supposed to be a 24-hour transition course, and the organization gave a certificate of completion at the end of the course for 24 hours of CE. I was able to go in and finish the course in less than 3 hours, and I got 24 hours worth of credit for it. So we contacted that organization and said, hey, you better take you're approved by Wyoming off your website in the next 30 minutes. And they did. And then they told me, well, our security people say that that's not possible. It's like, hey, well, I just did it. If you look at my initial time that I signed up for your course, and then you look at your time that you issued me my certification, you can see that was less than 3 hours. And you gave me credit for 24 hours. So CAPACE does the vetting of that for us, makes life easy. Otherwise, it would be a full-time job just going in and taking courses and checking places and things like that. So if you're delivering education, as long as, and you're in Wyoming, as long as you're part of a organized ambulance service, fire service, industrial service, hospital, college, or a group that we have approved, we will accept any of that education. Some of the things we won't accept is, Joe Bob's House of Education, EMS education. It needs to be legitimate, vetted, good education. So if you have questions on that one, contact myself, contact Brandon, and we can help you work through some of those processes. What we don't want to start doing is going out and doing a letter of accreditation to everybody out there that says, hey, I'm going to teach EMT classes, or I'm going to deliver this. Now, if it's an organization that's delivering things like the NAEMT courses,
I go real tough time. Real.
And they're delivering I won't say canned, but they're delivering pre-established content, AMLS, PHTLS, ACLS, CPR courses through AHA, Red Cross, any of our approved vendors. Those we're good with those because the certifying body for those is actually NAEMT, AHA, ITLS, whatever the case might be. So that parent organization is who's saying that course meets the standard. So there's multiple layers that we look at with this. So over the past couple of years, I've been kind of looking at things and seeing, hey, what are people struggling with when they go to renew? The biggest one is CPR and ACLS courses that don't meet our requirements. Remember, for a CPR card to be accepted, it must be at the BLS or healthcare provider or professional rescuer level. We've seen a lot of areas where organizations, whether just through lack of knowledge, through a mistake on the instructor's part, or just people not caring, load up Heart Saver cards, which are not professional rescuer. The other thing that we require is that all CPR classes have a skills checkoff component. So a 100% online course would not meet that standard. I see a lot of those as well. ACLS is very similar. People go take an online class, or they'll go to AHA's website, and this goes for both CPR and ACLS. They will take the online version, the heart code version, and never go get their skills checkoff done, or they only upload the online the certificate from the online portion, so they never actually upload a current CPR or ACLS card. So just things to remember: make sure that your email address is up to date in the ALS system, so if there is something, that's how we're going to contact you and get that back. Hours documented under the wrong topic. Again, we audit 10%, minimum of 10%. I've found a few here and there where it's like, this is a diabetic class and it's listed under trauma, or this was, auto extrication is under medical. If there's not enough information in there, sometimes it's hard. If you tell me that, they had a diabetic emergency or a heart attack and then crashed into the tree, okay, we're good. But just make sure, especially at the service level, if you're documenting education, there's enough there that, we can see that. Renewal applications submitted prior to the CME hours being documented. So somebody like, it's October 2nd, I can go do my renewal application. They hit submit on their renewal application, but they haven't documented hours, or haven't at least checked their training report to make sure their hours are documented. Remember, it is the responsibility of the licensee, so you, not the service, to make sure that your hours are completed. I've heard that one a lot. Well, my service said they were going to do. It's like, that's nice. I appreciate that your service is helping you. Remember, it's not your service's responsibility, it's your responsibility to make sure your hours are done. And Office of EMS emails not being read. I received a phone call yesterday from an individual. It's like, hey, I don't know why I didn't get renewed when I sent my stuff in December. And my response was, well, I can see the 5 emails where you resubmitted your renewal application without ever documenting hours that we sent to you. And like, oh, am I supposed to actually read those emails that you guys send us? So if you're getting an email from us, just like the fact that you guys all read them and are here today, generally they are, fairly important. So especially during renewal season, if you get an email from us, it's probably a good time to look at those emails. Probably not a great time to blow those off. So some of the questions that I've had so far. Do I need to re-enter all my trainings? No. If you have education that's been documented, I have OWLS set up to where that will pull over, and I'll show you that here in a second. And that goes into the second one, is why do I see two different sections in my training in the OWLS? So here in Wyoming, if you expired, in this case in 2019, you have the option of recovering your license for 1 year past your expiration date. To do that, you document your required CE hours, plus currently it's 2 extra hours per completed month. But because we had a rules change in the middle of the year, anybody who's doing that recovery has to recover using the 2019 standards, what was in effect at the time of their expiration. Any of us that are expiring in 2020 or beyond will fall under the new standard for the new Chapter 18 rules. So again, 2019, you're in Chapter 8, 2020 and beyond, Chapter 18. When you pull up your training report in OWLS, you'll see both of those right now. And I don't know if it's a system issue or a lack of Scott being smart enough issue. I haven't been able to figure it out so that you can only see one. Now here on January 1st, that whole 2019 section will go away, and there will only be the one section showing and available. Another question I've gotten, this has come from both service directors and individuals, is, so the state has changed, the state's gotten rid of skills. What if my medical director, service, whatever the case is, says I still have to do them? Do I have to do them? Yes, as a condition of employment, you have to meet what your service, what your medical director tells you have to do. So if they decide that even though right now we say an EMT has to do 42 hours to maintain their license, they may decide that, what, we want that EMT to do 62 hours to be able to work for us. You can do that. They can still make you take a test. They can still make you do skills checkoffs. The service can do anything above and beyond what we have in rule. They just can't go below what we have in rule. So they can, a service or an agency can require more of their staff than the state does for licensure. And, then some other people I've heard is, well, why did we change? Things were going great. This is the practice of medicine. It's not the science of medicine. Things are evolved, things improve. We are trying to move along, trying to follow some of the national trends that are out there and make things still continue to work and still continue to grow. If we get stagnant, we're never going to get better. And so we wanted to align more with, some of the national trends that are out there. We wanted to, again, move out of, the late 1990s, early 2000s, and move into, now that we're into 2020, get that information going. So that's kind of why we did what we did. We, individuals and, services have been asking us for this for years. We've been promising it for, that I know of, the last 4 years, and, potentially even longer than that. So kind of where we are, kind of what we're going to. Is everything perfect? Have we, gotten to where we probably need to be? I will never commit to that. That's why we still do education. That's why we keep learning. This world is evolving. Things are getting better, or things are getting different. 1 year ago, would any of us imagined the stuff that we've gone through for the past 4 months? So, we got to keep growing. We got to keep moving forward There's new processes, new skills that are coming out all the time. For those of you that are teaching, you know that we're adding new stuff to the EMT basic curriculum. Our next rules update will be getting the scope of practice updated to include the 2019 scope of practice. So there'll be more of that, more things coming down the road for us. So one other question that came in, that is somebody asked, if you've lapsed in 2019s, can you just renew or reapply? So no, we won't accept a reapplication or reapplication for reciprocity until you're beyond that year. So for 2019, if you're renewing before the end of 2020, you have to show us hours. If it's beyond January 1st of 2020 and you've still held a license in another state, or if you've held a national registry, you can then apply for reciprocity again, but you have to go through the full process, including fingerprinting for the background check, full application showing current code certifications, and the whole side of things there. So any other, feel free, if you got other questions, again, you throw them in the chat box, unmute yourself if you'd like, and throw them out that way. Like I said, we are going to record these sessions. We'll post them on the OEMS website here just once we get them done. I'll pick the best out of the four, see how, what days my voice was where it should be. And we'll have that available for folks as well. And yes, so in the recording, Amber, the slides will be there. Yes, go ahead.
Hey, Scott, this is Bill over in Sublette County. How are you?
Good, Mr. Cluck.
Hey, quick question. Are you going to change the dates? National Registry doesn't expire till March. Your state is in December. What are you going to do with that difference?
We have talked about that. Right now, no. We've looked at doing different things with the expiration dates, aligning with National Registry, keeping it the way it is, doing this straight 2 years from issue date. And a number of the service directors we've talked to have said, keep it simple for us, because we're, the two ways to do it would either, and make it easy for the service directors to either be align it with National Registry or keep it the way it is, where everybody expires, the same day. Otherwise, you're trying to think, okay, who expires on Tuesday, who expires on Wednesday, and did they get renewed? The problem that, or one of the issues we've talked about with going to a March 31st date is that individual who wants to try to play the system. So if I knew that my state and my National Registry expired on the same day, I could do absolutely no education and turn in my National Registry to renew my state before it expired. Then I could come back in 2 years and my state's getting ready to expire, and I could recover my National Registry just by going and taking a test because I still have an active state license. And then I get my National Registry back and I turn right back around and turn that in for my state again. So people can get creative, but those are some of the things we look at. And that's, again, why we still continue to do audits. And it doesn't, for, if you expire in December, if your card is good through March, your National Registry, we're good with that. As long as it is active at the time that you go to renew.
Thank you, sir.
So hopefully for those of you guys that have been, getting sick of hearing me over the last 3 years say, hey, we're working on this, we finally got it done. It's probably, of all the projects we've done in the office, the longest and most tedious that I have had to deal with. think even building the OWL system, getting that going to where you guys didn't want to lynch me on a regular basis wasn't this hard. So.
Hey, Scott, this is Rory in Carbon County.
Yes, sir.
Just a quick question. Somebody else asked it, and I'm just curious too. So if we have to recertify by the end of this year, we go under the new standard, correct?
Correct. So
okay.
That's what I knew there was something I wanted to show you. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yep.
You guys should be able to see. So this looks a little bit different than what yours is because I just pulled this up in the admin side. But like I said, when you go into OWLS as it currently sits, get rid of this so it looks the same. You'll see, for an EMT expiring, if you expiring in 2019, and you'll see the hours that are in there. You can go in and select from the drop down and select if you are an EMT expiring in 2020. I'm going to change this just so there's some classes in there. You'll also be able to see that. When it first comes up, before you hit that drop down, it'll show you both. But so for 2020 folks, here's an example. So elective now is with the new, instead of unstructured. So you'll see preparatory, ambulance operations, patient assessment, unstructured, and elective are all hours that now fall into the elective to meet the requirements of that category. So this overachieving person has a lot of hours in these different components. And what you'll look at is down here, this requirement total at the very bottom. And it says that he's met 10 of the 10 required hours for elective. If you go into we'll hit the intermediate, kind of show you this, same thing here. Shucks, I didn't hit it soon enough. But you can see for medical, you have your medical, your authorized medications, your EKG, monitoring defibrillation. Airway, same type of thing. So we've taken those different topical areas that would apply from before, and they're now added into, in this case, airway management as a whole. So you don't have to go in and worry about it. You don't have to think about it. It automatically adds all those together, and then just look at this requirements total line as to where you are and what you've got going on. So.
Thank you.
Yep. Anybody else? So, like I said, as soon as I have this ready, as soon as I have it online, everything will be in there. It'll be available to you, and I will send out another email through OWLS as to where that link is. It will also be linked on the renewal process page on our website. So under EMS program, education, training and education, and renewal, it'll be there as soon as we have it up and ready. And then that'll be ready to go. For those of you that need some assistance with the National Registry process, if you go onto their website, and we'll just grab AEMT here, and you click over here on the recertification tab, it'll walk you through how to renew with your continuing education. They have this recertification guide that's available on the National Registry site, and that will walk you through how to get in, how to access, and how to make things work. So, and if you need more help with that, let me know. I can set up a time with you to help you to walk through that there. We use the NCCP requirement. So if you've never registered in National Registry before and picked which model we're using, make sure you go in and when it asks you that you're using NCCP. It should automatically assign that based on your home state, but if it doesn't, that's the model that we're using. So, other questions, comments? Well, perfect. If you do, going forward, if you have more comments, let me know. We're hoping that this is going to make life smoother and easier. I truly believe that it is. Like I said, I think this is one of the biggest changes and advancements that we've made here in the office, secondary to using the National Scope of Practice model as our basis. So feel free, if you got follow-ups that we didn't hit, either come back and hang out again, or shoot me an email, and we'll get things set up, and again, hopefully continue to move things forward. So thanks, everybody. Have a great day. I'll keep the chat up for a few minutes. If somebody needs to hang out and ask some more questions, I'll have that available. Otherwise, that's what I had to share with you today. Thank you.